It was supposed to be a reset, not a dramatic exit, not a breakdown, just a quiet step back. Nora hadn't planned on running away exactly, but it happened in pieces. Her phone shattered when she dropped it on the train. Her manager had scheduled a serious conversation on Friday, which was usually code for being gently let go. And then, as if summoned by cosmic cruelty, her ex had texted her, again, just checking in. It was the 5th time that week. Something inside her shifted then, a tired, worn latch that finally gave way. She didn't cry, didn't scream. She just stood in the middle of her too-small apartment, surrounded by silence and city noise, and remembered what her therapist once said: stillness can be healing. Nature can hold you when nothing else can. So she booked it, the cheapest cabin she could find, somewhere in the Appalachian backwoods, miles from anything familiar. The listing was bare bones, just 2 grainy photos, a sentence-long description, and a location listed in coordinates instead of a street address. No Wi-Fi, no signal, no GPS, no real details. There was only one review, 5 stars. You'll hear them too. Nora laughed when she read it. Airbnb creepypasta. Some edgy woodsman with a flair for the theatrical. Maybe it was a gimmick. Maybe it wasn't. She packed a duffel and left that night. No plan, no list, no goodbye message on the fridge. She didn't even leave a note, not for her landlord, not for the 2 friends who still checked in out of habit, and certainly not for her ex, who had just texted just checking in for the 6th time in 4 days. She didn't respond, didn't even read it. She just threw some clothes into the bag, enough for a few nights, along with a worn-out book she hadn't opened in years, a flashlight she wasn't sure had working batteries, and a charger that would soon be useless. Then she walked out the door, locked it behind her, and started driving. First through the city, then the suburbs. Streetlights flickered above like lazy stars indifferent to her quiet exit. She passed familiar intersections, late-night gas stations glowing like lonely beacons, a 24-hour diner she and Lena used to stop at after bar shifts. But the farther she drove, the more the world behind her seemed to unravel. The lights grew farther, apart. The road narrowed, potholes appeared, paint lines faded until she wasn't sure if she was even on a 2-lane highway anymore. Her phone lost signal outside a town that barely had a name. She glanced at it once. The screen had frozen mid-song, her playlist stuck on a loop of a melancholy instrumental, the kind that made silence feel full instead of empty. The trees thickened on either side of the road, creeping closer, their branches knitting together above her like a canopy stitched by unseen hands. The GPS glitched once, then again, then just disappeared. Her location dot blinked away, replaced by an eternal loading that never resolved. But still, she kept going, because something inside her refused to turn back. The asphalt finally gave way to gravel, and with it came the first real doubt. The road crunched under her tires like bones, uneven and rutted, winding, through the hills with no signs, no shoulders, no mile markers. Her headlights caught the eyes of something in the trees once, deer maybe, or not. The deeper she went, the darker it got. It wasn't just the absence of streetlights. It was the absence of everything. No bugs, no birds. Just the mechanical drone of her car and the soft hum of her nerves unraveling one thread at a time. The air felt heavier now, like she was driving through water, like something thick and unseen had settled over the woods and decided she was worth noticing. Branches reached toward her windows, clawing and scratching, leaving faint lines like tally marks. She found herself leaning forward slightly, white-knuckled on the steering wheel, every part of her body tense and alert, as if waiting for the trees to close in completely. Her headlights flickered once, just a blink, but it was enough. She gripped, the wheel tighter. Just when her brain began whispering turn back, just when the feeling in her stomach shifted from anxiety to dread, she saw it. A rusted metal sign, half buried in the weeds. The letters were mostly worn off, eaten by time, but she didn't need to read it. She recognized it from the listing's final instruction. Turn left at the sign. No more directions after that. The cabin knows you're coming. She turned. The path narrowed further, flanked by trees that arched together like ribs over a spine. Her tires slipped once, hit a patch of mud, recovered. Her breath caught. She crept forward. Branches kissed her side mirrors. Gravel spat beneath the wheels. Every instinct screamed at her to stop, to turn around. But instinct doesn't matter when you've got nothing left to go back to. Then, just as the road began to disappear completely into shadow, she saw it. Cabin, tucked into a clearing like it had been dropped there by accident, or maybe hidden on purpose. It wasn't lit. There was no smoke in the chimney, no porch light, just a shape, a suggestion of structure. It leaned slightly to one side, like it had been listening to the trees too long and finally decided to answer them. There was something unnatural in its stillness, not abandoned, but waiting for her. Her headlights caught something red fluttering on the porch. A scarf. Hers. She must have dropped it her first night out here, though she didn't remember walking up yet. Didn't remember unpacking. The cabin stood in silence, watching her watch it. She killed. The engine. The world went silent. Even the wind died. No signal. No lights. No turning back. The cabin, tucked into a hollow of whispering pine, like it had been waiting. It leaned slightly to one side, its roof sagging under moss and shadow. The porch tilted forward, as if the whole structure was trying to whisper something back into the woods. The windows were bare, hollow, watching. She half expected the front door to creak open on its own, but it didn't. She found the key beneath the mat, just like the message said. It was ice cold, like it hadn't been touched in weeks. Inside, the cabin smelled like dust, wood smoke, and something faintly metallic. The floor creaked under her boots like old bones shifting awake. There were no curtains, just those bare windows, and the slow realization that she hadn't seen another human in over an hour. Maybe more. Still, she unpacked. Lit the fireplace using the dry logs stacked by the hearth, made tea with the bottled water in the single dented kettle left behind. She wrapped herself in a blanket that smelled of cedar and silence. It was quiet. Too quiet. Not peaceful. Not yet. Just silent in a way that felt unnatural, as if even the bugs and birds were holding their breath. She sat in the armchair by the fire and tried to read. The words floated past her eyes like ghosts. The pages crinkled in the heat, and soon, the letters began to blur, until it felt like the ink was bleeding into the wood grain itself. Her eyelids grew heavy. The warmth of the fire fought the chill pressing in from outside. The shadows from the flames danced along the walls like they were trying to tell her something. She should have felt safe, secluded, free, but she didn't. Instead, a strange feeling began to bloom in the center of her chest, a pressure, like something watching, waiting, listening, and then, just on the edge of hearing, something moved in the trees, not loud, not threatening, just a whisper of motion, a rhythm that didn't belong to wind or fire. She sat up straighter, straining her ears, but there was only silence, except now, she wasn't sure it was silence. It felt more like a pause, like the forest had noticed her, like it was deciding what to do next. That night, just after 1:03 a.m., the whispers began. Not loud, not urgent, just there, creeping in like mist. At first, they sounded like wind, thin and restless, slipping through the cracks in the wood and curling around the bedposts. But wind doesn't speak in full sentences. Wind doesn't say names. Nora, it was so faint she almost convinced herself it hadn't happened. She lay stiff under the blanket, heartbeat pounding in her throat, eyes locked on the cabin's ceiling, counting the knots in the wood to ground herself. She tried to reason with maybe an owl, maybe coyotes howling just right, warping sound through the trees, maybe even a dream, but then she heard it again. Closer this time, more deliberate. Nora, come see. And it sounded like her voice, only slower, drawn out, breathless version of herself, as if someone were trying to remember how to speak like her. and it came from behind the wall. By morning, it was easy to laugh it off. The fire had gone out. The air was cold. Her tea sat untouched on the windowsill. Her book lay open to a page she didn't remember reading. She chalked it up to nerves. Isolation. The stillness of the woods playing tricks on a brain that wasn't used to silence. She cleaned, rearranged things, played music from an old battery-powered radio she found in a drawer. She even laughed at the absurdity of the night before. But that second night, the whispers came again. This time, louder, more confident, and no matter how hard she tried to block them out, pillows over her ears, fingers in her hair, eyes squeezed shut, the words found her. She looked too long. You'll see them, too. Don't blink, Nora. Then came the scraping. Something beneath the floorboards. Not a rat. Not a squirrel. Something heavier. Slower. Like nails dragging across old wood. The sound came from the foot of the bed and crawled its way to the wall behind her head. She sat upright, breath held tight in her chest. Every creak of the wood seemed deliberate, taunting. And then, the window. Something pulled her toward it, against all reason. Some primal part of her knew not to look, but curiosity overpowered caution. She peeled back the corner of the blind, and there it was, a face, pressed to the glass, not fogging the window, not blinking, just staring. Eyes too wide, skin the wrong shade of pale. Its mouth was open slightly, like it had been frozen mid-breath. She gasped, and as she did, the figure vanished. Not into the shadows, not back into the woods, just gone, like fog erased by light. The next morning, sleep-deprived and shaking, she tore through the cabin, looking for something, anything that could explain what was happening. That's when she found the journal. It was hidden beneath a loose plank in the bedroom floor, wedged deep into the cold earth like someone had buried it. Its leather cover was cracked and dry, the corners chewed by time. Pages stuck together, warped by dampness and decay. Most of it was illegible. Scratched words, strange symbols, frantic scribbles. A mind unraveling on paper. But one sentence, repeated over and over again, dozens of times, in different inks, in different handwriting. Don't look out the window after midnight. Nora stared at the phrase until it burned behind her eyes. She should have left right then. She should have packed her bag, run into the woods barefoot if she had to. But something held her there. Not fear. Not exactly. It was like the cabin itself was watching, daring her to disobey. That night, of course. She looked. 57 a.m. She sat on the edge of the bed, journal in her lap. The last entry circled in red ink over and over again. Don't look out the window after midnight. A.m. The room grew cold. The fire cracked once and died, smoke curling toward the ceiling like fingers. 03. The whispers started. Dozens of voices, some weeping, some laughing, some repeating her name like a prayer. And then the scratching began, not beneath the floor this time, from the walls, the ceiling, the windows. 6. Her breath trembled as she rose. Each step toward the window felt like she was moving through thick syrup, slow, strained, wrong. The air around her had changed. It had weight now, like the room itself was pressing in on her lungs, asking her if she really wanted to do this, if she really wanted to see. But curiosity has always been louder than fear, and whatever force had whispered her name these past nights, whatever it was, had been waiting for her to look. Her fingers reached for the cord. She hesitated. There was something ancient in that hesitation. Like her body, her blood, knew better. Like it had been warned generations ago. But her hand kept moving. She pulled the blind, and there they were. Not people. Not really. At first, she didn't know what she was seeing. Her brain tried to process it as fog on the glass, as light from the moon refracting strangely across the surface. But then the fog moved, shifted, took shape. Faces, dozens of them. Not on the glass, but in it, as if the window had become a two-way mirror into another place. A darker place, a colder place, a place that remembered things the world had tried to forget. They stared back at her, not directly, not exactly. Their eyes didn't seem to see, only to reflect. Deep wells of imitation, as if they were learning what it meant to be human by watching her. Their mouths moved, but no sound came. Some smiled, wide, unnatural, lip-stretched smiles that didn't reach their eyes. Others cried, tears rolling down pale cheeks in perfect mimicry. One figure ran, its fingers through its hair at the same moment Nora did. Another touched its throat exactly as she swallowed, and all of them, mouthed her name. Nora. Over and over again. Silent, but synchronized, as if they'd practiced for years. One woman's face was identical to hers, but wrong. Her eyes were too big, her lips too still, like someone had tried to sketch her from memory and failed just slightly. That version of Nora tilted her head slowly, and the rest followed. 40, maybe 50 heads tilted in unison. Her breath caught. She stepped back instinctively, and every reflection stepped back too. Same pace, same posture, like a distorted echo, moving just behind the veil. Then they smiled, all of them, at once. Not cruel, not joyful, just aware. As if a shared joke had just passed between them and she was the punchline. One of the faces raised a hand to the glass. Not tapping, just pressing. A pale palm, 5 long fingers splayed wide. And behind that hand, nothing. No trees, no stars, just darkness. The world behind them didn't match hers anymore. And then the glass rippled, just slightly, like water. Nora staggered back, her foot caught on the rug. She hit the floor, breath ripped from her chest. But her eyes never left the window. They didn't move. They just kept watching, and now they were closer. The faces had grown in size, pressed against the glass now, cheek to cheek, forehead to forehead. Their eyes wide, unblinking. Their mouths opened slightly in unison. They started to mouth something new. 3 words. She couldn't hear them, couldn't know them, but she saw. Let us in. She scrambled to her feet, heart a hammer in her chest. She threw herself toward the blinds and yanked them shut with shaking hands. The snap of the slats echoing in the silence. Her knees buckled. She slid down the wall, gasping. But the damage was already done. The window was closed, but the image was burned into her skull. She could still see them, blinking on the backs of her eyelids, mouths moving, heads tilting, that warped reflection of herself smiling just a little too wide, mimicking her fear now, reaching toward her, mouthing her name again. Nora, Nora, Nora. One of them raised a finger and pointed, not at her, behind her. She turned, heart thudding. Nothing. But when she looked, back the faces were closer. She screamed and yanked the blinds shut so hard they tore. The images were gone, but not forgotten. Their expressions were burned into her skull. Their lifeless mimicry seared behind her eyes like an afterimage from staring into the sun too long. And even after she collapsed back onto the bed, clutching the torn journal to her chest, she could still hear them. Nora, you looked. Now we see you too. The cabin. There it was, just as she'd left it. The same winding path through the trees. The same low fog clinging to the forest floor like breath that wouldn't lift. The same crooked porch slouched beneath the weight of time. And there, tied to the railing, the red scarf she thought she'd lost on the first night, flapping gently in a wind that didn't touch the trees. She stepped closer. Her boots landed in her own footprints, faded, but still there, pressed into the damp earth like a warning whispered too late. The front door was open, not wide, just enough to suggest an invitation, or a trap. And from inside came the sound that turned her bones to ice. A voice. Her voice, calling her name. Nora. Soft. Familiar. Like it had been plucked straight from her throat and sent back through the air. just slightly wrong. Her heart pounded, but her body moved without asking. Toward the door, over the threshold. The air inside was thick, still. The fireplace was cold, the shadows deeper than they had any right to be. Steps creaked across the floorboards, but there were other steps too. Echoes that didn't wait for her feet. And the voice again, closer now. Whispering from the corners, from the walls, from beneath the floor. Nora. She turned toward the bedroom. The door creaked open. Empty. Then the kitchen. Still. The whispers weren't coming from a room. They were coming from her, from inside her. And as she spun around, trying to locate their source, the front door slammed shut behind her. Hard. The walls shook. Dust rained from the beams. The window panes trembled. She ran to the door, yanking at the handle, but it wouldn't budge, locked from the outside, or maybe from somewhere else entirely. The cabin groaned, like it was breathing in. Then she heard them. Footsteps, above her, below, all around, dozens of them, and voices. Too many voices to count. Nora. She looked, she stayed. Now we remember. The mirror in the hallway cracked. The fireplace hissed to life without a spark. Shadows lengthened on the walls, shapes that didn't belong to her. She backed away slowly, pressing herself against the door. Whispers brushed against her ears like fingers. And then, silence. The cabin exhaled, and everything went dark. No one ever found Nora, not the local police. Not the search party that hiked through the woods for 3 weeks. Not the online sleuths who traced her name through missing person databases. Her phone was never turned back on. Bank account remained untouched. Her car, gone. As if it had never driven those roads at all. The cabin listing disappeared within a month, pulled from every site. Coordinates dead. No record of the host. The last digital trace was a cached version. 2 grainy photos, 1 vague description, and a star rating. 5 stars. For a while, it stayed empty, forgotten until it resurfaced. New name, same coordinates. No reviews. At first. Then, one appeared. All, lowercase, no punctuation, 5 stars. You'll hear her too. Some places don't want to be found. They wait, they whisper, and sometimes they remember the people who listened. If you ever hear your name in the trees, don't answer. Not every voice in the woods wants to be saved. Some just want company.